The build-up to Philip II's Persian campaign was a turning point in Greek history. After his 338 BC win at Chaeronea, Philip had cemented his role as Greece's undisputed head via the League of Corinth. His grand aim was to bind the Greek city-states under one cause, ending internal strife to strike the age-old foe, the Persian Empire, a lingering menace to the Hellenic world for over a century. Philip began thorough preparations for his Persian push. Greek cities were tasked with supplying troops and resources, setting quotas for a true pan-Hellenic army. Engineers and experts were brought in to manage logistics and craft new weapons and siege methods. Philip, famed for military novelty, further honed his Macedonian forces, especially the phalanxes and elite cavalry, ensuring they outmatched Persian foes in arms, order, and training. Cities like Sparta, traditionally aloof or insular, refused the league, holding a proud, defiant stance against Macedonian sway. Philip countered with measured patience, signaling that open defiance would face stern reprisal. Meanwhile, smaller, weaker cities saw the Persian venture as a chance for glory and spoils. Despite internal friction and political pushback, Philip's Persian campaign loomed near. The Macedonian king was tirelessly marshaling his army, plotting routes and key points, and already sending generals like Parmenion and Attalus to ready Asia Minor's ground. Alexander was still in Greece, far from Macedonia's palaces, when a courier delivered a letter with his mother Queen Olympias' royal seal. The young prince opened it eagerly, knowing she rarely wrote unless the matter was grave. Its news was troubling. Philip II had cast her off and planned to wed anew. Olympias wrote that Philip would marry Cleopatra Eurydice, niece of the powerful general Attalus. This union posed a dire political threat to Alexander, as Cleopatra hailed from Macedonia's top nobility. A son from this match could supplant Alexander as rightful heir, being pure Macedonian, unlike Alexander, whose Epirot blood from Olympias was ever suspect to the elite. Indeed, Olympias never won the Macedonian noble's favor. Her foreign roots, cryptic ways, and zeal for strange rites with snakes and mysticism bred mistrust and aversion among the old guard. Her rift with Philip had widened over years, and the divorce merely capped this decline. Alexander, gravely worried, resolved to head back to Macedonia at once to guard his succession rights. On the return trip, the prince mulled his fraught tie with Philip. Since youth, Alexander felt the weight of his father's lofty demands, which swung between pride in his feats and dismay at his fiery nature and ambition. Back in Pella, Alexander found a tense political scene. Loyal friends and allies had been banished or ousted by Philip's command, especially those truest to the young prince. General Attalus had risen as the court's key figure, increasingly steering military calls and turning Philip against Alexander. The royal wedding day soon came. Philip, perhaps to keep up appearances and avoid scandal, invited Olympias and Alexander to join the revelry. The festive mood hid rising strain beneath. Guests from Macedonia's mightiest clans drank freely, as custom allowed. The time came for toasts to the newlyweds. Attalus, well into his cups and fueled by old grudges against Alexander, raised his cup and boldly wished the gods grant Macedonia a worthy heir from Philip and Cleopatra Eurydice's bond. The insult was blatant and sharp. Alexander, gripped by fierce anger, hurled his cup at Attalus, splashing wine across the hall. The court fell into stunned silence as all watched the brewing clash. The young prince lunged at Attalus, set to brawl, but close friends held him back. Yet Alexander wasn't the only royal known for a hot temper. Furious at his son's outburst, Philip drew his blade and staggered, drunk, toward Alexander. The sight shocked all. Macedonia's armed king menacing his own heir before gaping guests. Only Philip's stumble and fall before reaching the prince spared a deadly strike. "So this is the man to cross from Europe to Asia? He can't even cross from couch to couch," Alexander spat, livid and scornful. The tense hush after the scene soon turned to murmurs among the crowd. Alexander, now deeply shamed and endangered, saw his court position was untenable. Knowing his safety and political fate hung in peril, he chose to leave Macedonia for a time. Alexander grasped that his court standing had grown shaky and possibly deadly. Political plots at the Macedonian court often ended in blood. Facing this looming risk, the prince opted to depart willingly, seeking haven in Illyria. In exile there, Alexander felt a storm of emotions: distress at his threatened heirship, fury at the public slight before the court, and rising resolve to protect his rightful claim to the throne. In Illyria, Alexander was received by longtime Macedonian allies who admired his grit and drive. This refuge was no random pick. Illyria lay near Macedonia, home to peoples often allied or subject to the Macedonians, who saw in the prince a chance to tighten political bonds or secure a future pact with the likely next king. Meanwhile, Olympias, staying in Macedonia, worked tirelessly behind the scenes. The ousted queen used her son's absence to rally her network, shoring up alliances key to ensuring Alexander's safe, victorious return. At the same time, she sowed tales and tidbits among Macedonian nobles, reinforcing that the kingdom's safety hinged on Alexander's bold, magnetic leadership. During this span, Philip too pondered the fallout of the family rift and his heir's exile. Though initially enraged and let down by Alexander, he saw that Alexander's prolonged absence could harm the stability he'd fought to build. Alexander's distance, paired with Olympias's deft rumors, began to stir unease among generals loyal to the young prince, many fearing a succession crisis that could weaken Macedonia just before the Persian push. Philip had just sired a son with his new wife, named Carinus. But heading to Asia without a grown heir to secure the succession was a gamble Macedonia couldn't take. Seeing this, Philip yielded to inner and outer pressures and chose to mend ties with Alexander. Envoys were sent to the exiled prince with diplomatic overtures and assurances his court role and military command would be fully restored. Receiving these, Alexander sensed the political tide at court had turned his way. The Illyrian exile seemed to benefit the prince. The Alexander who returned was no longer the rash youth who left, but a seasoned leader, wise to court dangers and political games. This shift was a crucible that sharply honed Alexander's character, readying him for the vast trials ahead.